Okay, so for this tutorial for today, we are going to be learning about our photo portfolios, or I guess we'll call it our photography and design portfolio. Um, we're still going to label it as our photography portfolio because the majority of it is photography related stuff, but we're going to add our stickers and our video and everything into the same portfolio so it's all in one fun, complete document so that you can show to your friends and family and all that stuff. Generally, it's very similar to the one that's online right now, but we're going to just change it up and add some pages. We'll add some content to pages so that it's a little more efficient. So here we go. We're going to have InDesign. We are working in InDesign exclusively today. So you need to, if you haven't already done so, open that up and get yourself ready to create a fun document here. Select New Document from the panel here. That should bring up this pop-up window that shows you the different sizes of documents you can create. For today, we're just going to create a regular size booklet, so an 8.5 by 11 size piece of paper. So a few different things that make our life a little easier. In here, we're going to call this portfolio and then give it a name that's your name. So in my case, it's D Wright, but in your case, it would be your first initial and your last name. And the reason being is because when you all email them to me, if you just left it as untitled, I'd have no idea whose project it was or what's going on. So please put the name on it that is your name. So portfolio, and then whatever your first initial, last name is. That way I'll be able to tell it apart from all the other ones when I download them into a file to take home and mark. So once you've got a name, we're going to change the units to inches so that we can see that it's 8.5 by 11, just to make sure that we've got the right size piece of paper. If it's not set to 8.5 by 11, please do that. The width should be 8.5, your height should be 11. And our booklet for today is going to have 12 pages. And we're going to start on page 1. And the columns, margins, all that stuff, we'll just leave it as the default. We don't actually need to make any changes with regards to that stuff. So should be good to go. Once you have that information in there, 12 pages, page size 8.5 by 11. Make sure that the orientation is portrait here, and then give it a name, Portfolio D Wright. You're good to go. You can hit create. I am going to open the one I created this morning as well, just so I can use it as a reference. Okay, so first things first, with our portfolio here, obviously we want to make our title page. So a couple different ways we can do this, but the way I like to do it is start with your text. Make a nice big text box here. It's going to be the title for your piece. We already know that we're going to use a bigger font, so I'd say scale it up to like 36 to start with. You'll go bigger than that, but it's a good place to start. And then pick a font that you like. I do not like the one that I'm on, so I'm going to go with Myriad Pro and go to the bold. And then we're going to just call this our photography 10 portfolio. Okay. Pretty simple. Underneath that, I would put that it is block 4. And then again, put your name. Don't type my name, put your name. And then we're going to center this. So you should have it already selected. If not, you can click and highlight these text objects. And then in the top right-hand corner here, you should be able to click the little icon for centered. And it will bring all your words to the center here. Now, generally, the block 4 and your name don't have to be so gigantic. So these we can bring down. I'm going to leave mine at 24. And then my title, I will increment bigger until the photography 10 starts to jump to the next line, and then I'll just come back a little bit. So I ended up with 65 points for font, but you're going to get whatever you're going to get depending on the different font you chose. If you don't like the fact that this is bold, you can always highlight it and then just select regular, and it's going to be less bold. You can also increase the space between the lines by clicking Alt and the down arrow, and it will shift those down just a pinch to give you a little bit nicer spacing on this document. Okay, once that's finished, click your selection tool here and then just make this box a little bit smaller. If you go too small, it'll cut off and you'll get this red plus sign. We don't want that. We need to go big enough that everything fits, but just get it out of our way a little bit. For your title page photo, this can be a photo you found online someplace that you really like, or one that you created. It's basically just a title page. So we are going to create one big huge box. And this box, we're going to give it a border so that it stands out on the page when you put the picture inside it. For today and for the start here, we're just purely going to do all the building of all the boxes and putting the document together. And then on Thursday, we'll actually place the images into the document. It's just so much easier once the boxes are already made. Everything stays straight and stays clean, and you don't have a bunch of things all different sizes. So with that being said, to add a stroke, you simply go to the stroke functions up top here, and you want to increase. For this first one, I'm going to do a 5-point stroke. The box is inside the book. I usually only do a 2-point stroke. You can leave it black, or you can make it whatever color you want. I would suggest leaving it black. I think it looks the cleanest. But again, that's your call. So that is page 1 of our photography portfolio. We have 10 more to go. Pardon? Here we go. So a couple different ways to get to page 2. You can scroll down, but then sometimes it's like over to the side and it's kind of in a weird spot. So if you click on pages and you double click on page 2, it will automatically select page 2 for you, and it'll kind of center it on the page. So page 2 is going to be our horizontal and our vertical photos. Before we get going, though, we need to add one divider kind of marker so we know where to put the logo, or where we need to put the words and stuff. This morning we realized the page is not split down the middle. It's kind of like 60% of it on the top and 40 on the bottom. So if you don't have your rulers already shown here, you need to go to View, and then it should say Show Rulers. So if I don't have my rulers, I go View, and I want to click on Show Rulers. You can also do Control R on the keyboard, turns them on and off. Okay, so we want those rulers to be shown because we need to be able to pull down a ruler bar or an alignment bar, or whatever you want to call it. These marks, if you click on the ruler and drag down, you'll bring down this bar that I can set. In this case, I want to set it to 6 inches. So I need to go until the little cursor shows 6 IN, and then when I let go, it will stay there now so that I can line things up to that space, and I know that it's going to be organized correctly. So just like page 1, we're going to start with the text first. we're going to draw a little box at the top here, and we're going to type horizontal photos. These lovely horizontal photos, we want to center this again. We also want to go bigger. Whoop, 60 points is way too big. And we want to change our font again. I'm going to go back to the Myriad Pro, go to bold, and then I'll just kind of click it up from there till it fills the box nicely. Now, because I want my top of my page to match, and I want the next part of the page, the next title, as well as the next page to match, I want all three of these to be the same size title so that they look nice and there's some consistency. So that you could do a copy, so Control C and then a Control V, and it would paste another version in for you. But one cool trick is because you already have the selection tool selected, you can hit the Alt key on the keyboard, so hold Alt down, and when you slide over, your cursor will change, and you can drag, and it automatically makes a copy of whatever you drag down. Okay, so I can do the same thing, Alt and copy over to this side of the page. And then I know that the two top ones here, they actually need to be middle of this red bar. So you kind of have to line them up in the middle. We're going a little bit outside of the border, but it should be okay. Our printer can print pretty close to the edge on the top and bottom of the page. And then this bottom one needs to bump up against our divider that we put in, so we know that at the top of it is at 6 inches. Okay, once we have all those labels, we are now going to create our boxes to put all our pictures in. So for our horizontal photos, it would be lovely if we could fit all 10. That's not going to happen because we just don't have enough space, and 10 is kind of a weird number in terms of columns and rows. And because we don't have the full page, we can't just do like 2 columns of 5. So when you click and drag your box out, make sure you don't let go, and also don't go right down to the very bottom where the horizontal photos is. We need space underneath the bottom to be able to put the labels. So kind of stop. In my case, it's 7.5 inches wide and 4.5 inches tall, give or take, the box I've just drawn. Do not let go with your mouse until I tell you. Just keep your finger pressed on that button. When you click on your keyboard with your left hand, the right arrow, if you click it twice, you will get 2 columns, and then you click the up arrow twice, you'll now have 9 boxes that all match in size. They're all identical. Okay? And then you can hold the control key on the keyboard and the up arrow at the same time and actually change the spacing between those boxes. So if you notice, up and down vertically, they have a little bit more space between them, and that will allow us to put in some labels so that it's just nice and clean and we have the labels typed in on our photos. Once you have these 9 photos boxes and you have the spacing correct, you simply just let go with your mouse and it'll now create 9 individual photo boxes. Okay. Next step is to add in the labels, of course. We're just going to do one label and get it perfect, and then we'll copy it to the other boxes so that everything stays the same. Okay? Now, we all know that when you type in a text box, it's right at the top. So we don't actually want this text box to touch the box above. We kind of want it to be on top of the bottom box, but give yourself a little bit of space there. And that way, when we type our logo or our label in, so this case it's formal balance number 1, it's going to give us a little bit of spacing there. I'm going to go 16-point font, and I'm going to change this to Myriad Pro, which is the same font I've been using for the whole thing. Maybe I'll just go regular though, so it's easy to see. Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit here. So I'll zoom in a lot. How about I zoom in a little bit? Oh my goodness. There we go. Just so you can see those spaces there. Now I kind of forgot one thing, but I did it on purpose because I wanted you to see how easy it is to change. These boxes here right now have no stroke color around them. But if I just click somewhere on the side here and drag across, I can actually select those 3 boxes and then very quickly add in that 2-point stroke just by clicking up to 2 points. Okay? Then I can do the same thing here. I can select all 6 of these and add that stroke as well. In the meantime, I haven't messed up the text box and added a stroke to the text box. If you're not careful and you select the text box as well, you'll end up with a box around that, and that just doesn't look very professional. Okay. The next part would be to copy and paste this into the 9 places. You can do the Alt trick, so you can hold Alt, move it across, let go, or you can simply do copy and paste. So Control C, Control V, and then because you're pasting the same thing over and over, you don't actually have to re-push Control C. You can just Control V and keep going until you have enough to fill all the different spaces. Keeping in mind on the bottom here, make sure you leave that same little gap that you did on your other ones so that the words aren't right touching the box. We want to give a little bit of gap here. When you've got all of the label areas in place, now you simply just have to go through and retype. So this is formal balance 2. This one's informal balance 1. This would be informal balance 2. And then we have leading lines 1. Leading lines 2. And then we've got 3 that are rule of thirds. Now, if you don't want to type rule of thirds 3 times, you can actually, within the text box, you could copy rule of thirds. So Control C, go to the next text box, select the text you want to replace, and go Control V. And you'll now swap out for the new rule of thirds text. You still have to retype these numbers to be 2 and 3, but generally that gives you all your boxes nicely labeled, ready to go. Okay, so the vertical photos here, very similar. Obviously, we have to change the label, right? This needs to say vertical photos. Actually, it only needs to say vertical. We already have photos. And now, because of the way that vertical photos are set up, we actually can squish all 10 of our photos on here. So we're going to draw again one big large box. Draw your box. Remember not to let go of the mouse. And then this time we're going to do 5 right clicks, or excuse me, is that just 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Gives you 5 columns. And then 1 up arrow gives you the 10 boxes that we're looking for, but they're a little too close together. So again, we're going to hold Control and the up arrow and space apart those boxes just a little bit. When you let go, now we have all these boxes. Now, before you deselect them, you can at this point add your stroke in. So go up the 2 points and you automatically have that stroke added in. One of the reasons I want you to add a stroke to all your boxes is because then if you ever have a box that's missing something, you'll still get credit for drawing the box and for having it labeled properly. Even if you don't have an item to fill the box with, at least I know that you created your portfolio properly and all the stuff is in the right spot. Okay? Now, a little trick here. These labels up top are the same labels that we would like to have down on the bottom. So we are actually going to click on them, take our selection tool, select them, and we are going to drag one of them only, right? Do your Alt and drag one down, and you're going to set it underneath the first box. I think I created a second. Okay, this one, we are going to take the top right-hand arrow here, hold the Shift key on our keyboard. We're going to scale her down so that that box will fit above here. Now, if I let go like that, it looks super weird because it didn't scale the letters at the same time. If I go and hold Control and Shift, now when I scale this to fit, it will actually scale the letters and the words and everything all at the same time. That's really weird. It like worked this morning and then didn't work now. Oh, I think I'm just letting go of it too soon. There. Okay. And then we want to make sure we change our font size. So we need to click in here, make our font a little bit smaller so that it actually fits in the box. 14 just fits, 13 is probably better. And then again, same process as before. From here, we can now copy and paste, fill in all the spaces that we need, and relabel things. If you notice, once you've started to place them, these green lines will show up saying, hey, look, you've got it in the exact same spot as you had the other one that's next to it. So it's kind of nice because then you can make sure that everything is lined up to the other ones on the page. And it's just going to be nice and clean and not having stuff go all over the place. So we can jump in here, change this to 2. This is informal, which may not fit now. Oh, it just fits. Oh, no, it doesn't. If you notice, I've got these plus signs. I've lost my number, so I just need to make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go 12-point font. But I'm going to go back and change these to 12 points as well, so that they all match and everything is consistent. So this is leading lines 1, leading lines 2, and then we have our rule of thirds. Rule of thirds 1, so and so, you'd go rule of thirds 2, 3, 4. So again, copy, paste, paste it in there, paste it in there, and again, we're just using that Control V to paste. So when you're all done, you should have a page that looks something very similar to this. All right, moving right along. Let's do the portrait page now. So at the top here, we're going to adjust the label so that it says portrait. Portrait photos. And we are going to now create, we want to have 3 boxes that are of equal size, plus room for labels and stuff. So again, draw 1 big box. This time, don't go right to the bottom. Leave it be up a little bit from the pink line. And then we're going to just do the right arrow once and the up arrow once. And then we are going to control and make a space between them. But then we're also going to use the right arrow and make a space between them vertically, because we want them to be more of a portrait size, not so chunky. Okay, once you have those done, you can let go. It will select those. I'm going to use the arrow. I just want to bring this down just a pinch so it's not quite so close to my title at the top. As well, we're going to add the stroke in again. 2-point stroke for all those boxes. The box on the right-hand side bottom corner here, this box is actually going to get deleted because we want a space for a text box. We want to put some text in the box here to give ourselves a description of these photos. So we click the type tool here. We are going to draw a box similar in size. So when you start to draw a new box, these green arrows will show up again, and it'll show us that, hey, look, I'm just as wide as the box above. And if I go down here, it'll snap and tell me that I've got it just as long. I don't want to be quite as tall because I don't want to be too close to the label that's going to go underneath this picture. Inside this box, you're going to put this in later. But generally, you're going to have information like description about yourself, what you like to do, hobbies, explain your photos. Just generally, you have to fill this box with text to show me that you understand that you can type inside of a box. Okay. Then we want to make sure we put our labels on here again. Now, a handy way, so you don't have to like draw out a new box, is you can just take one of these, hold Alt, drag it across, and then same as before, we'll just scale it to fit. Double click inside of it, make the font a little bit bigger. Question? Oh, the deleting of the box is really, really simple. You just simply click on it and then push delete on the keyboard. It'll go away. Okay, so this is going to be not rule of thirds, but it'll say my selfie. Alt click, drag this across. This one is my portrait. And down at the bottom, we'll call this one my artistic portrait. It's the one where you don't have your face shown. All right, we are chugging right along. The next couple of pages will be really easy because there's way less typing to do on them. But we want to bring along one thing for us. We want one of these titles, we want to copy one of them. So we're going to click on it and we're just going to go Control C so it's copied. And then when we go down to page 5 here, we can Control V and it will paste onto this page. And we're actually going to start on page 4. So just go to your pages, go to page 4. You can also use this like scrolly bar here too to go back and forth between pages. So, yes. I think I think you may have messed up your view settings. Here, I'll show you. So the box with the X, if you go to view, I think it's the screen mode. Check that and make sure that it's in normal. Because if you go to preview, it gets rid of all those boxes and stuff. Is it in normal? Huh. Are they still there? Are the boxes still there? Huh. Well, for starters, give them a stroke around the outside. Remember, they should all have a black line around them, right? If you hold shift, you can select a whole bunch of them. Those are all a little bit different in size, Andrew. You're going to have to just adjust it just slightly. Question, Brooke? Did you do, okay, the page that you just did copy to all of them? Yeah. Did you by chance do it up here in one of these master pages? Because if you did it up here, like if I put something in this page, so if I go to master page A and I typed a big D for Donovan, right? That will actually apply, it will show up on all the pages in my booklet. This is how you get like things like page numbers and stuff like that to show up.
Excuse me. I think I have to head home probably.
Why?
I got a text message from my mom saying I have to get picked up
Okay,
for some reason.
go check with the office first. The way to get rid of it is to go to your master page and select all your stuff. So you're going to want to go Control-0 so you can see the whole page, and then select the whole entire page, and then Control-X will cut the stuff out of there, and then double click on page 2 where it should have been and just paste it into page 2. And let me know if that works. Uh, that one's pretty good because it has all those holes in it. So it actually, you can just probably just use your hand, yeah. Or grab like a spatula or something. It should be fine. Ideally, try to start like, get someone to help you. Like you kind of want to get the top started straight. And then as you pull it off, kind of be pressing it down and work your way from the middle to the outside. We're going to have to cut out a huge chunk of this video. That's all right. Okay. Any chance it worked, Brooke? Okay, perfect. So moving right along, go to your pages. Let's go to page 4 and 5. If you haven't done so already, you can move this title onto page 4 and 5. I just copied it from page 3. So if you go to page 3, select the box, Control-C, then go to page 4 and paste it in there. This first one is going to be panorama photos. Panorama photos. And then the one across the way from it, this will be depth of field. All right, so panorama photos, traditionally they're super long, and we have 3 of them. So we're gonna click here, drag all the way to the bottom, and then we're just gonna do the right arrow twice to give us 3 individual images that are super long, and then simply let go and add our stroke. So our 2-point stroke on those, and those are done. We're not gonna put labels on them because it would just be kind of lame. Panorama 1, 2, 3. That's not much of a label, so we don't need any labels there. Same with our depth of field. We're going to do very similar. There should be 15 of them in total. So we're just going to click, drag again all the way to the bottom. Twice with the right arrow. 4 times with the up arrow gives you 15 boxes in total. Again, let go. Before you deselect these, click the up twice on the stroke so you get that black stroke around all the boxes. And now you should be good to go with these 2 pages. They are essentially all completed. Okay? Now, how are we doing? It's 306. Oh, perfect. We can get into the next section here. We didn't get this far with the ones this morning. If I'm not mistaken, the next thing we did after depth of field was we did our HDR photos. Now, if we look at our page setup here, we have our front page, our back page, and then we have all the insert pages in between. Now, when you're doing a 12-page booklet, pages 6 and 7 end up being the pages that are in the middle of the booklet, shall we say. They are the center, would be the center fold of your booklet. So when you lay it out flat on a table, that would be the natural place for it to fold out because that's where the staples are and that's where it's folded, is on pages 6 and 7, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so because of that, we want the center of our book to be our best stuff, if you will, because that's primarily what's going to be seen the easiest, is always the center of a book, because that's where the natural seam is. So when we go to pages 6 and 7 here, we're going to open this, or this 6 and 7 is going to become our favorites page. So what I mean by favorites is, oh, hang on a second. I just minimized something. This is our like favorite photos, not only that we've created, but also could be other people's work, could be artists that we like, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then we're also going to do probably, I think, our next best stuff, if you will, would be our like stickers and our photo print. Let's put those in the middle of the book as well, because I think that they're going to look pretty cool here. So on the left hand side, we're going to make a text box. So make a label here. And then we're just going to, oops, I should use the text tool. And we'll just call it favorite, I should make this bigger so you can see, shouldn't I? Favorites. Is that? No. Favorites? No. Thank you. Good stuff. My favorites. What? Oh, yes, we're not American. I get you. Now I understand the comment from the peanut gallery. Good stuff. That's like color and stuff is spelled with the Canadian ooh. Okay, my favorites. I don't like this font. I'm going to change it again. Back to Myriad Pro. Bold. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and then on my favorites page. So we want to have enough space for our photo print. Now our photo prints, they were actually quite big. So our photo print, we're going to make a box that stretches across the whole bottom of the page here. So your photo print should fit inside this box, hopefully reasonably well, if I'm not mistaken. And if you slide the top of it up and down, when it hits the pink line, that means that the top of this line is the center of the page. So you know that your photo print now should fill up the entire bottom of the page. On this side of the page, we're going to do something similar to this. So we're going to create one image box that goes to the center here. And then you need to back it off just a little bit. It can't be right on the center, or it'll be right touching the boxes over here. So you need to figure out where the center is and then come back just a pinch so we're not right at the center. Okay? So this will be just a favorite photo of yours. And then we're going to do a box on this side of center. And if you notice, it gets to be the same size. And when the computer tells us, hey, look, you've got it the same size, height, and width, now we want to click to the right arrow one time and the up arrow one time. And it will split it into 4 boxes that are the same space as the stuff on the left-hand side. All of these boxes, eventually we'll put a stroke around them all, but for now, we'll just leave these ones as is. Up here on the top right-hand side, we need to make a box that's big enough for our stickers to fit in. What else could we put in these boxes? Trying to think what's a good... we have our sticker, and we have... Yeah, let's do it. And we'll do our screen print design. Okay? So, I will label mine. Don't label yours, because it'll mess up your... Oh, no, I guess you could do that if you wanted. You could click in here with the text tool, and you could call this photo print. This is your favorite photo. And these are also favorites. Faves. And this is our sticker. And this would be our t-shirt. Okay? Now, all of these text pieces that I put in, if I was to select this box, don't do this, but just watch. If I was to place in an image, say like I had to print this off this afternoon, this socogram thing, it would just fit into the box and it gets rid of the text. So this text that we've put in right now is just like a reminder as to what was supposed to go in those boxes down the road. Okay? Now, something that we haven't done yet is we need to save this and make sure that we're saving so that the computer doesn't accidentally crash or something goes wrong and then we lose everything. So go File, Save As, and then make sure that it's saved in your Comtech folder in the F drive. In this case, because we've already given it a name, it should automatically show up with what the name is. So Portfolio D Write is the name. I don't know why someone from Florida is calling me, but I'm sure that's spam. And then just hit save. This is going to ask me to replace it. I'm going to say no because I want to keep the 2 different versions. Okay, and we are almost half done. Okay, the last step on this page is to put the strokes in. So if you just select from one side here all the way across to the other, it will select all the boxes and you can simply increment that up give yourself your 2-point stroke. All those boxes are now ready to go, and we are basically half done. One thing I'm learning with doing digital media and stuff is that page size and everything matters a lot. So because we're kind of designing this as a print publication, it's the kind of thing where it's really tough to not just print it out as a booklet. It doesn't really work the same way when you try to view it online, because sometimes you see the entire spread, sometimes you just see half the page. So in a situation like this where the page goes across the entire screen, well, all of a sudden it's going to be very different when viewed only half of the picture, and then you flip the page and see the other half of the picture. So just some things to think about when you're doing e-publications and doing online stuff versus when you're doing paper publications. But for today, generally, we are headed on our way. So if you are following along, we are on to pages, would be pages 8 and 9, if I'm not mistaken. But we want to keep the titles and stuff consistent. So again, we're going to go from page 6 and 7, go to the My Favorites, click on that box, Control C or right click copy, and we are going to then go to page 8, and we are going to paste that in here. So Control V is paste, or you can say right click and paste, and you would end up with the title. Put those titles at the top of the page where they look nice. These two pages are going to be our high key, low key pages, and then we're going to have our typography faces set up here. Typography faces are super simple, but they have some labels, so we are not going to work on them at the moment. But our high key and low key ones, they are just simply boxes, right? We had 6 photos for high key and low key. So really simply, we can take our rectangle frame tool. I'm not going to draw my box right from underneath the My Favorites. It works best if I'm down just a titch, and then if I don't go all the way to the pink. So you leave yourself some space top and bottom. We're going to do 2 clicks to the right to give ourselves 2 columns, or 3 columns, excuse me, and then 1 click up with the up arrow. We'll split it that way. And now if we go hold Control and the up arrow, you can click it a bunch of times and make space in between the boxes just to kind of even out the page so that we have nice spacing at the top, middle, and bottom of the page. For high key and low key, that's basically it. We want to give our stroke here of 2 points, and then obviously we need to change the words to say high key and low key. So high key slash low key. Right? Keeping things really simple, that page is technically done. Now, what we're going to do for the typography faces is very similar, but a little bit different in the sense that we want to create 4 separate boxes to put our 4 faces in. But if we did a full 4, we would have to do the control arrow again and make them space, and it'd be really hard to get these 2 boxes to be the same height as the ones on the other side of the page. But there's a really cool feature in InDesign, and it shows you this little arrow will show up as you're approaching another intersection of a box. So if I click now, I can actually drag out this big box and make it the same height as all the other ones. As soon as I get to the same height, the little green arrow will show up saying, hey, you've got it the same height. And now all I have to do is click 1 time with the right arrow, and I've got 2 boxes that are identical in size but the same height as the other side of the page. I can do the same thing on the bottom of the page. Click, drag out all the way to the bottom. I get green arrows, 1 click to the right, and I now have another 2 boxes that are essentially identical to everything that I'm doing here. These bottom 4, or these 4 boxes all need some kind of a label, right? So again, like we did before, take the text tool. We're going to draw out here Nice little box. This one is going to be angry. We're going to center it. Change the font to something that we actually like to use. And then keep in mind, this text box is touching this image box. So we actually want to make this text box just slightly smaller so that it's not up against the text box. And that way, when we print our design, it's just going to be a little cleaner. You can use the arrow keys on your keyboard. If you select a box, you can kind of move it up and down to change the spacing or the size of it just slightly. Just a little FYI. So I want it to be something like that. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this to the other 3 locations and change the words. So paste it in here, paste here. These 2 are a little further down, so I just selected the 2 of them. So you can hold the shift key, click one, hold shift, click the other, and then just up and down to make sure that we've got it selected. And then you can go in here, double click, and change it to happy, sad, confused. Okay. Pretty simple. Last thing you would do is change your title, Typography Faces. And we want to make sure there's a stroke around these boxes. So you can click one box, hold the shift key, and then click the other 3. And that will select them all, and then you can add the same 2-point stroke around all of them. So our next page here is going to be the Photoshop projects page, but we need the title from one of these 2 pages. So again, just copy, Control C, head on down to the next page, Control V, and that gives us the title for this page, and Control V again, title for this page. Now, I know that we need more space on this left-hand side, so if you select both of these titles and you move them up just a little bit, you can just use the arrow tool just to bump them up a little bit so that they're not so far down. It'll just give us a little more space on this left-hand side to get everything to fit. So the left-hand side is going to be our Photoshop projects. And on the right-hand side, it will be our video project. Your video project page is the simpler of the 2 in the sense that it only has 2 boxes. One box is a text box on the top part of the page that for now we're just going to put video description in the box. And then when you actually place your video in, you can write a little video description. Just say, my video is about selling pop cans, or whatever your video is about, and give me some details there. Just kind of outlining what your video is about. And then at the bottom of the page, this particular text box don't have a stroke. You don't want to have a stroke around it. You just want it to be text. But then we're going to create an actual frame at the bottom of the page here that will be used to hold our video when we get there. So again, for reference, you can just type in here quickly and say that it is for your video project, just so it's really obvious what goes in the box. on the left-hand side of the page, we are going to add in something that is for our Photoshop projects and stuff. So we're going to make sure that we have boxes that will fit, generally will fit a proper 8.5 by 11 page size. It's not an ideal ratio, if you will. 8.5 by 11 is not really, it's not really 8 by 10, and it's not really a 5 by 7. It's kind of a size all to its own, right? So when you make your movie poster, which is what one of the projects that we're going to do as a Photoshop document, you're going to have to trim off just a titch of it. But what seems to work, how should we say? What I've noticed works the best is like any kind of ratio that would be like say a 5 by 6 in terms of our size of cropping, tends to be reasonably similar, or at least will fit 8.5 by 11 page in fairly well. It's not ideal. It'll cut off the bottom of it just slightly, but it works really well for this type of portfolio document. So if you create your box here, you could drag it out and go 5 by 6 and try to get it to line up exactly, but that's actually kind of hard and kind of clumsy and not a very good way to do it. So what works the best is if you take your rectangle tool and you just simply click one time, it'll actually bring up this pop-up box that says, how big would you like the box to be? And I'm going to tell it that I want the box to be 5 by 6 inches. And then it makes a nice little box for me that I can use my selection tool and just move into the corner here so it's neat and tidy and ready to go. So 5 inches wide, 6 inches tall. Beside our movie poster, like every movie poster has a compilation of things included in it. We'll talk about it on Monday a little bit, but generally you're going to have text, you're going to have images, you're going to have logos, various different pieces, if you will, or elements that go into a movie poster. So 3 of those we're going to highlight on the side here. So we're going to draw a long rectangle down the side and then use the up arrow twice just to create 3 distinct boxes. And in those boxes, you're just going to have elements from your movie poster placed into those 3 boxes. So we can label this one as our movie poster. And you can label these ones as element 1, element 2, element 3. Something like that. Gives you everything you need. And then the last step, we're just going to add in 2 boxes at the top here for our Photoshop project 1 and 2. So again, big rectangle, 1 click to the right, and this is going to be project 1 and project 2. Now, all the boxes on this page, aside from the video description, need a stroke. So make sure that you've gotten that 2-point stroke and you've added it to all of these boxes. That way everything looks neat and tidy and matches the rest of your portfolio. The back page of your portfolio is purely for your own enjoyment. So what we're going to do is just draw one big giant box on the back page, and you can do whatever you want to do in that box. You can add some more of your favorite photos. You can draw a totally new picture. You could write a story on the back. Doesn't matter to me what you put on the back cover. That's your chance to be a little creative, so not everybody's portfolio looks identical. So there has to be something there. You're going to lose marks if you don't have something there. Approximately 8 marks or so, because with 12 pages, it's out of 100, so you do the math. It's about 8% or so if you left the back page blank. So you definitely need to put something there, because otherwise you just get a 0. But if you do put something in there, you get a full 8 marks. Pretty simple concept. So other than that, yeah. If you want to look at your portfolio, if you ever want to see it without all the lines, like sometimes when you're going through, you're like, oh my goodness, does this even look good? There's just a lot going on. You can go to your view settings, and in screen mode, you can say preview, and it will show you what the book will actually look like without the crazy divider lines and the margins and everything else. So you can see better, have I gotten outlines on all the different places where I need an outline? Do I have extra ones where I don't want to have an outline? So it's kind of a nice thing to be able to swap into that preview mode at times. But at the same time, it's not ideal in the sense that you can't see where all the boxes are and which ones are frames and which ones are not. So obviously we work in normal mode 90% of the time. Now, when it comes to placing images into your boxes, there's a couple different ways to do it. One is to have a box selected. The problem is if you have, for example, this My Portrait box accidentally selected, and you go File, Place, and you want to place in an image. Where's all my stuff? So maybe I want to put in my portfolio picture. All of a sudden I say open, and now that picture is squished into that little box. Okay? Not going to help me. I can go back one step, Control Z, will back up, and then now I have that picture that I can stick into this box for your portrait. But it's much more convenient if you actually just place the images without something selected. So I find it easier when you don't have a box selected and you go File, Place, because now I can actually select multiple images, open those all at the same time. It'll show up here that I've got 3 images to place, and it even shows me a little thumbnail of which one I'm placing. So this way I know, okay, I'm going to place my artistic one, my selfie, and my portrait. Now, they're not fitting in the boxes very well, but at least they're in the correct box. The next step is to fit them to the box. So I need to click on each one, hold shift, select them, and then I can right click and I can adjust the fitting. And depending on what kind of image, I might want to fill the frame proportionately and fill it right up, or fit the content proportionately. If I say fit content proportionally, this one that was a landscape fits width-wise into the frame, but it doesn't fit height-wise. Whereas if I right-click and I say fitting fill frame proportionately, it keeps everything proportional, and I don't get any chubbier than I already am, but it fits into the boxes better. So now the frames are fully filled and everything looks proper. Now, that looks really good here, but what if I was, for example, doing my panorama photos? They're not quite as simple to place in there. So when I go to my settings, I make sure I've got nothing selected. I don't want to have one of these selected. I just want to have nothing selected. I go File, Place. I'm going to find these portfolio photos and I select my 3 panoramas. When I hit open, same thing happens. I've got my 3 images. It's got a little number 3 there, so I know how many I have to place. I select the boxes, but what has happened, by default, they go in as horizontal images inside of a vertical frame. Doesn't really help me. By default, your guys' InDesign, if you haven't changed it before, the reference point is always on the top left-hand corner. I have no idea why. It annoys me, and it never made any sense to me when I first learned InDesign, but that's the way it is. So you need to change the reference point to the center square here, or else it's going to give you a lot of trouble. Once you've done that, it's really simple to move these images. You simply click on this little donut or hole in the middle here, and you right click, transform, and say rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Click on the dot, rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Click on the circle, right click, 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now I can select all 3 of these, and again, right click, fitting, fill frame proportionately, and magic, they all fit into the frames. Now this bottom one and this top one, I kind of like the way they look. They seem fine to me. This one is cool and all, but the cars, in my opinion, are way cooler than this like poster with these trophies and stuff. It's hard to see them anyways. So if I click on this donut again, I can now use the right or left arrows or the up and down arrows to slide this image along, because there's a lot more of this panorama than you can see in the image. Now you get the cars being the focal point, and it just so happens it runs out before you get there. Okay, but they're all the same height, they're all the same width, they fit into the frames nicely. If I viewed this again as a preview, I would see that they would all be nice and clean, they have their borders, and everything fits nicely on the page. Okay, so generally that is our portfolio in a nutshell. Obviously, you're going to need to place a whole bunch more images into your document to complete it. And your video project here, I will do a separate tutorial about pasting in video files and exporting to digital media once I've figured out how to do it. So far, I have not figured out how to do it and have it actually play the video properly. So we have a little bit of work to do, but I will figure it out 100%. I'll figure it out, not to worry. All right, everybody. So we've been doing this tutorial for a couple days now, and I noticed that we forgot one massive portion. This is a finished tutorial. I went ahead and fixed the issues on it, but basically, if you notice, we never did do our proper job of our HDR photos. We never added them into our tutorial in the first place. So we need to adjust that and get those added in. So I'm going to go back to one that I did in the Block 2 class where we had everything set up. This document, actually, if you look, has 12 pages. The new document is going to have 16 pages to be finished off. We had to add 4 more pages to our design in order for it to still work on a full page set of spreads. Obviously, a regular 11 by 17 piece of paper is the equivalent of 2 8.5 by 11s. So when you break that in half, you need 4 more pages to create 1 more piece of actual paper. We can't just add 1 page and have it be 13. That's not going to work. The booklet wouldn't fold correctly. We'd have a bunch of white space at the end. That would be really awkward. It's just not going to look very professional. So it's better if we add a few extra pages. What that means, though, is that you've got a little bit of work to do to fix your tutorial here and just tweak it a little bit. Most of it you'll find exactly the same. Panorama, depth of field, all this stuff exactly the same. We're going to add in the HDR photos. Your favorites stay the same, your typography faces. What we will change, though, is our Photoshop section where we have our Project 1, Project 2, and our movie poster. Those will get much bigger, basically just to fill the space. And then we're going to have our video project with a video link here. You have your page that you get to do whatever you want to do, your kind of personal choice page. And then we've actually added in the marking guide on the last page so that everything is all in one nice, concise document. So moving right along, I'm going to throw this on the other screen here, and we will work on the document from yesterday to make those adjustments so that everything matches. This portfolio here, obviously, like we say, our one from that you guys have completed only has 12 pages. So the first things first, we need to add some extra pages. Let's do it strategically though, because we don't want all the pages just to end up at the end. We have to move them around a lot. So we actually want to add one page kind of in the middle of our book actually. We'll just refer to the other book so we can see what's going on, right? We had moved our high key, low key up, and we have it opposing our HDR photographs. So on this document, where we have high key, low key, which is here, we're going to move this up in front of our favorites page. So we're actually going to take this and drag it over to the side. You see these little cursors show up. So it will pop up and it will actually split our favorites page kind of in half. If we go to the high key, low key, you can see that your favorites page is now broken in half and this picture sticks out the side. Well, that's obviously not what we want. But if we click on page 7 and we say add a new page, it will add a new page in just after page 7. We can slide that into the position here for page 6 and 7. And now we have our favorites are back together. And if we double click on page 6 where our high key, low key is, now we see that we have an empty page that we can add in our HDR photos. For this HDR photos page, really specifically, or really simply I should say, we are going to add it in such a way that we get all our different HDR photos on the same page in a fairly creative layout. Now the trouble is we have to make our title a little bit higher than this page opposing it, which some would say is bad design, but for today let's just go with it in case of speed, and we won't we'll pretend that we didn't make any issues here. So copy and paste this title, move it up here. I like to put it just a little bit above. We're going to highlight it. This is going to be our HDR photos. We're going to create a whole series of boxes on this page. If you look at the finished example, you can see that this bottom section kind of lines up. So we're going to make one big box here, all the way across. We're going to make 3 big boxes here. Now if you remember from before, simply you're making one large box and you're using the up arrow twice to create this space in between them. If you don't like the way that they were spaced here, I can just tweak this after because they're all still selected, and it will make an adjustment to the size of all of these boxes. That looks fairly decent. Up here we're going to make another little box, and this box are going to be the same size. So we're actually going to create both of them at the same time and then just move them up. So we want to leave enough space that we can have 3 little squares, because all of our HDR photos have 3 individual images that go into making up the one image. You'd have your overexposed, your medium exposure, and your underexposed image to create that final HDR photo. So for creative ability though, we're going to go like this. We're going to go all the way across, do one click to the right, and then now we're going to take this bottom or right hand photo here, push it up to the top so it sits underneath this one, and it gives us this little gap here and a gap here. So it creates a little bit of definition so that you know that these 3 photos match with this one and these 3 photos should match with this one. So take our box tool, our frame tool I should say, draw out another frame, 2 clicks to the right gives us 2 boxes that are, or 3 boxes that are all identical in size. Similarly, we do the same thing at the top here. 2 clicks to the right, and there's our boxes. Now, these boxes are not exactly square, they're more of a rectangle shape, and they're almost a portrait size. So we're actually I'm gonna bring both these down just a titch. Bring this one down, bring this one a little bit smaller, which allows me, if I hold shift, to select all 3 of these and make them all slightly taller so that everything fits in just that much better. So there's your layout for HDR photography. So we like what we have for our favorites, and we are going to simply skip ahead after our favorites pages and adjust the next batch. So what we've ended up with now is, if you look at the finished project, has Typography Faces across from our Photoshop project. So on our document that we're fixing, we have Typography Faces and we have Photoshop project, but these boxes are all wrong and in the wrong spots. Okay, so we are going to delete 2 of them, project 2, movie poster, just get them out of our way. We're also going to delete these 3 boxes because it's just faster, I find, to get rid of them. This box, however, we will stretch out and make it almost the full size here. We can always adjust these frames after, once we've placed our images in, but generally let's just make them most of the screen size here. And then we're going to add in, across the bottom, we are going to add in 4 boxes so that we have the ability to display the different items, or some of the different items that make up our Photoshop project, the main pieces and stuff. So here we go, drag this across. Again, use our right arrow 3 times to create 4 boxes that all are identical, and we're going to add in a stroke around those that's of 2 points. That actually reminds me, our HDR photos, we need to just do a quick highlight on them. So use your selection tool, highlight all these boxes, and give them the same 2-point stroke, just so our booklet is completely consistent across the board. Now the cool part about making this page is that page 2 of our Photoshop projects and page 3 are all identical. So all we have to simply do is click in on page 11, and then we're going to add 2 new pages. 1, 2, gives us 2 blank pages, and we can either go to page 11, highlight all of the stuff on page 11, go Control C, go to page 12, Control V, and it drops it right into the middle here. We can kind of center it, make sure that it's exact same spot as it was on the other page. Or what we actually could have done, if we just delete this one, say delete page, we could have actually copied this page. So if you right click, you have the option to duplicate a page. So we could have just duplicated this page, and it would have popped in here and give us a second copy. Now sometimes that copy goes into weird spots, so we would have to move it back where we would need it. And now we have 2 identical pages, 12 and 13 are both side by side. They look the same. This project would be project 2, of course. And this is going to be our movie poster. Sure, give me like 2 minutes. Moving right along. Again, comparing to our other one, so we have our Photoshop projects. In this one, we didn't have the title on there, which kind of makes sense. Once you've titled something, you don't need to have another title. So let's go into our second, or our version that we're working on here. We're going to click on this second and third title and just delete them. All you have to do is hit delete on the keyboard and they will disappear for you. Moving right along, we want our video projects and then our personal project. So we have our video project. This one looks a little bit different because we realized also in the process of finishing things up that our video projects, we can't do an embedded video we have to do a link video. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy and paste this box, copy. So it just says click photo to view video. Just a little description saying that you need to make sure that you click on the video for it to actually work. This video here, I have a separate tutorial on how to input in videos and make hyperlinks so that when you click on it, it would go directly to the linked video on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever you have your videos stored. It's good to go. This is your personal page, and then the last step is to, at the end here, if we double click on page 15 and add one more page, it's going to give us our final page, and we are going to do a file, place, and we're actually going to place in, this will be found on the internet, on the website for you guys to find. I have the original copy stashed away in my personal files here. Let's see if we can find photography, your guys' marking guide, photo marking guide. And I would just simply click on it one time. It's going to jump in here, and then you can hold shift and scale it up to fit the page a little bit better. Right click on there and say fitting fill frame proportionately. And now you have a nice big marking guide that you can write your name on, you can fill out, and you're good to go with regards to finishing up this project. So the last step will be to print this off. There's already a tutorial online about how to print booklets. I know it's a booklet of only 12 pages, but it'll work just the same with 16. It's really just one more page that the printer has to deal with, but when you print it, it's exactly the same process. You're going to export this as a print-ready PDF and then print it into booklet mode using Adobe Reader or Adobe Acrobat or whichever PDF viewer your computer has available to you. So hopefully you like this tutorial. It's a long one. We know that. It's a big one, but you'll be hopefully very happy with the results, and your portfolio will be something you'll be proud of for years to come. Have a great day.